Picket Duty is a medium-complexity solitaire wargame where the player commands a Fletcher-class destroyer stationed in the waters around Okinawa in 1945, protecting the American invasion and carrier fleet from waves and waves of deadly kamikaze attacks. The game includes one 22 by 34-inch paper map, 240 1.2-inch aircraft counters, 160 0.6-inch counters, a 24-page rulebook, a 20-page chart book, and there are 2.0 versions of the rules and chart books available online. These incorporate various corrections to both booklets. 4 player aid cards, 2 6-sided dice, and 1 10-sided die. In this game, the player controls an American destroyer, while the Japanese forces are controlled by an artificial intelligence system that consists of multiple tables included in the chart book. The upper part of the map contains tracks and boxes used to keep track of various aspects of the game and damage to the destroyer's primary compartments. The lower half of the map shows a top-down view of a Fletcher-class destroyer. The destroyer's armament consists of 5 5-inch turrets, 5 40mm gun tubs, and 7 20mm gun mounts. Surrounding the destroyer are 8 bearing areas showing angles from 0 to 315 degrees. Each bearing has spaces to place Japanese aircraft approaching from 3 different altitude levels: low, medium, and high. There are 2 types of compartments: primary compartments, which are located on the map, and secondary compartments, which are shown and kept track of on a separate display sheet. The ship's primary compartments are divided in 3 sections. Each section is serviced by a particular crew repair section. The forward section is serviced by Repair Section 1. The midship section is serviced by Repair Section 2, and the aft section is serviced by Repair Section 3. A blue background in the compartment means that the compartment may be flooded due to damage or intentionally flooded to correct ship listing or trimming. The game also includes a time record sheet to keep track of the game turns and also to keep track of the land radar stations that become available for activation, as well as when kikusui, that is, massive kamikaze attacks, may occur. The secondary compartment sheet is used to keep track of damage to such compartments. The left box is checked when the compartment is damaged, and the right box is checked when it is destroyed. The game also includes a ship log to personalize our ship and crew and keep track of important damage to our ship, as well as to the number of Japanese planes shot down. There is also a fire reference chart display. This chart shows which particular guns can fire at specific bearing positions. Note, for instance, that 20mm guns cannot fire at any planes flying at high altitude. Each turn in the game represents 1 full day and is divided into 3 phases, each phase representing 8 hours of real time: the morning phase, the midday phase, and the night phase. will play scenario number 1. The end is near, June 7, 1945. Our destroyer will be the USS Anthony. In this game, we will use the advanced rules. This game is normally an introductory game which lasts only one phase, but we will play all 3 phases of the turn: the morning, the midday, and the night phase. To win, our destroyer has to remain afloat and at its duty station at the end of the 3 phases. Our destroyer is assigned to station number 1. It has a modifier of -2 that applies when we roll a die on the Japanese attack table. In this game, in general terms, negative modifiers favor the Japanese, as well as column shifts to the left, and station number 1 is the most dangerous of all 16 stations in the game. Now we fill out the ship's log, and we have here the information of the destroyer with the date and the station it is assigned, and we have here the names of each of the officers that are represented in the game. We will now draw chits from this cup, and the chits range in value from -2 to +2, and we will then write down the value of each of the chits in the space that is assigned to each of the crew members. I certainly cannot complain. Captain Davis has a +2 rating, as well as the engineering officer Jackson, and the repair chief of Section 3, Hood, has a +1. So we return the chits to the cup, and we continue with our setup. Now we place the crew members on the map. Captain Davis is placed on the bridge. He cannot move from there. The executive officer, Lee, is also placed on the bridge, but he can be moved to other primary compartments. We place Gunnery Officer Longstreet and Damage Control Officer Stewart in the Combat Information Center. The Engineering Officer Jackson can begin in any of the engine rooms. We will place him in the forward engine room. The Chief Petty Officer Forrest can begin in any primary compartment. We will place him in the aft engine room. We place each of the repair chiefs and the crews for each of the repair sections in the damage control box. Once the game starts, all the officers except the captain may move to other compartments as needed for repair purposes. We have the hit, fire, and damage markers handy in a tray right beside the board. We begin by sorting all Japanese aircraft with special attack capability, which is signified by this symbol here. And we pick one of each kind except the Soniers. And here we have them. These will be the Japanese aircraft that will attack during random attacks. We set them aside. Now we take the remaining special attack aircraft and we will combine them with the regular kamikaze aircraft and these 8 Japanese attack ends markers. And we will place them all in a large opaque container. I'm using a very large vase here, and you will need a large container because the counters here are very big. We place the fuel supply, ammo supply, hull integrity and maneuver markers at level 10. The green zone means optimum status, yellow caution, and red is critical status. We place the floating marker at level 10, and the list and trim markers are placed aside in case we have to place them in these boxes as a result of damage to our ship. We place the morale marker at level 0, and the land radar marker also starts at 0. Now we place the target markers near each of the corresponding guns. The target markers are used to be placed on the Japanese aircraft that the gun is firing at. Here we see the 2 forward 5-inch guns, 2 40mm guns. In the midsection, there's 2 more 40mm and 4 20mm guns. Moving towards the aft section, there's 3 5-inch guns and another 40mm gun. And in the stern section, 3 20mm guns. Now we determine if a fighter detection team has been assigned to our destroyer. If so, we will gain a +1 modifier on the Japanese attack table. We roll 2d6, and the result is a 5. A team is assigned. And we place the FDT present marker here as a reminder that we get that +1 when we roll on the Japanese attack table. Now we roll to see if we get any surface fire support markers. We can get a maximum of 2, and each marker adds 1 to the Japanese attack table, and if we get none, we subtract 2. So we roll 2d6, and the result is 11, so we get both surface fire support markers. We place the surface fire support markers here. Now we determine which land radar stations are activated. Our scenario takes place here on June 7. These green boxes signify the land radar stations that may be activated, so we roll for each one of them once. We roll 2d6, and we start rolling first for Heido radar station. The roll is an 8. Heido is activated. Now we roll for Yeshima radar station. The roll is a 7. Yeshima is also activated. And finally, we roll for Zamani radar station. The roll is a 4. Zamani is not activated. If we would be playing a multi-turn scenario, we could roll on the next turn to try to activate Zamani radar station. So 2 of the land radar stations were activated, so we move the marker to the number 2 box, and the land radar value is 1. Our ship's air search and surface search radars are fully functional, so we place the ship radar marker in the +1 box. We begin by checking the weather. Because we are playing with the advanced rules, the weather in the first phase is clear. We check to see which kind of air fire support we have. It can be carrier or land-based or both. And we use the table that corresponds to our date. June 7 falls here. So we roll 2d6. The result is a 10. It will be carrier and land-based, both types. Now we draw a value chit for each type, and we will consult table 7-2. We now determine the number of air fire support markers we received, and we have available carrier-based and land-based. We will first draw a chit for the carrier-based, and it is a 0. So we will be rolling 2d6 on the 0 column. Because we have a fire direction team available, we add 1 to the die roll. The die roll is a 10 modified to an 11, so we receive 3 carrier-based air fire support markers, and we place them here in the available box. Now we pick a chit for the land-based air fire support markers, also a 0, so we will roll 2d6 and add 1 because we have a fighter direction team. The result is 9 modified to a 10. We receive 2 land-based air fire support markers, and we place them here in the available box. Now we roll on the Japanese attack tables, starting with table 8-1, and we have to determine which column we will use, and that is based on a number of factors. First, any fire direction teams present. If we have one, we get a +1. If not, -1. We do have a fire direction team, so we receive a +1. Next, we take into consideration the chit value drawn for each type of fighter cover, land or carrier-based. In this case, we have of both, and both were 0, so there is no change here. We're still at +1. Now we check our ship's radar. As we stated before, both our surface and air search radar systems are working. So in that case, we get an additional +1, and now we're at +2. Next, we see how many land-based radar stations are working. And because we have 2 land-based radar stations working, we have an additional +1, so now we're at +3. We now consider surface fire support markers available, and we will get a +1 for each. We have 2 surface fire support markers. Adding a +1 for each surface fire support marker, now our total goes to +5. Now we check for the modifiers affecting the die roll. Well, weather is clear, so this one doesn't apply. This one is the only one that applies. Picket Station 1 is our station, so we modify the die roll by a -2. We roll 2d6 on this column with a -2 die roll modifier. The roll is an 8 modified to a 6. So now we consult table B. We roll on table B. There's a possibility of no attacks, and there's a possibility of a random result, and also a result here, 2 planes attacking plus note A. Note A states that we roll 1d6 and add that number to the number of planes attacking. So we roll 2d6. The result is a 2, so there will be 5 planes attacking. And these are the bearing positions for each one of them. We now consult table 8-3 to determine the number of waves that we will have. 5 planes. We will have wave number 1 with 3 and wave number 2 with 2, and a maximum of 2 special attack planes in each wave. Now we draw the 3 planes that constitute the first wave, and we will place them sequentially on the map. The first plane drawn is this Jack fighter, and it will be placed at the 90 degrees low position. The next aircraft drawn is this Nate fighter, and it is placed at bearing position 225 degrees high. We will use these 2 mosaic blocks to give some height to the counters. 2 of them signify high altitude. The third aircraft of the first wave, and it is a Jake reconnaissance plane. And it is placed at bearing position 315 high. We pull out the 2 aircraft that comprise the second wave. The first one is a Peggy bomber, and we place the counter on the attack aircraft space of the second wave. The second aircraft is an Oscar fighter. We place it together with a Peggy bomber, and these 2 aircraft will await the resolution of the first wave before they're placed on the map. In the notes section of the ship's log, we write down the bearing positions for each one of these aircraft. Peggy will come in at 270 degrees high, and the Oscar at 270 degrees low. Now we proceed to the defensive fire phase, in which the guns of our ship can be aimed at particular Japanese aircraft within the gun's radius of fire, and that is stated here in the firing charts. For instance, this number 1 5-inch gun can fire at planes at the 315, 0, 45, and 90 degree bearing positions, as well as any at 270 degrees. So we would place the markers on the specific Japanese aircraft that we will be firing at. A word about the 5-inch guns. These guns are much more effective if they can be fired together, linked through a system known as the Mark 37 gun controller system. It's a system that combines the use of a computer with radar. And we have target markers in this game. If we do not use the system when we fire these guns, we use this counter. I pasted it to this other counter, which is the counter that we use when the system is being used, and we get that +1 modifier. Now, to find out if we can link, for example, these 3 guns to be fired at the Nate here, we have to check the firing chart first. The Nate is in the 225 degree bearing position, and we see here that guns 3, 4, and 5 can all fire at that same position irrespective of altitude. So we can fire these 3 guns using the Mark 37 system against the Nate, and we mark it accordingly. Now we can only use the Mark 37 system once at a time. So we cannot use it for coordinating the remaining 2 guns against another aircraft. So if we fire with the other 5-inch guns, which are here, they will not receive the bonus, and they will fire without the Mark 37. Here we see the gun assignments, and now we will see if we will assign any air fire support markers as well as surface fire support. You assign an air fire support marker against the Jake and another one against the Jack here, and the surface fire support markers one against the Nate and the other one here against the Jake. We start with the air fire support marker here. We roll 1d6. We need a 6 for a hit. Otherwise, it is a miss, and we will remove the support marker in any event. The roll is a 4. It is a miss, and we remove the air fire support marker. We start by firing with the 20mm guns. We'll start with gun F. So we roll 2 dice and consult this column. The result is a 6. It is a miss. So now we proceed to fire with gun C. An 8 is rolled and the Jack receives 2 hits. And now we proceed to fire with a 20mm gun B. And the result is a miss. So we now start firing with our 40mm guns, starting with gun B. The 40mm guns receive a +1 bonus because each has its own gun director. So we roll 2 dice. The roll is a 6 modified to a 7, 1 hit. So now the Jake has a total of 3 hits. And when a Japanese plane accumulates 3 hits, we place a shot down marker on the plane. This gun fired, and with a shot down airplane, any other gun that has not fired is considered expended. And in a subsequent subphase, we will resolve whether the shot down Japanese plane will crash into our destroyer. Now we proceed to resolve the fire on the Nate, and we start with our surface fire support marker, and we need a 6 on a 1d6 to destroy that Nate. The result is a 1. It fails to destroy the Nate, and we return the surface fire support marker to its holding box, and we can use it in the next wave. Now we will fire with each of the slaved 5-inch guns. We start with gun number 3, and there is a +1 bonus because they are slaved to the Mark 37 system. So we roll 2d6, and we obtain a 7 modified to an 8, and it is 2 hits on the Nate. Now we roll for gun number 4. The result is an 8 modified to a 9, flamed. And any remaining guns that have not fired are considered expended. And we will resolve whether that Japanese plane will crash into our destroyer in a subsequent subphase. Now we resolve the fire against the Jake. We start with the surface fire support marker. We roll a 5, it misses, and we remove the marker, but we can use it in the next wave. Now we roll for the air fire support. Another 5, we needed a 6. Now this support marker is expended, and we remove it for now. Now we start rolling with our guns, and we will roll with the unslaved 5-inch gun, starting with gun number 1. We roll 2d6. The result is a 4. There's no modification. That is a miss. So we already fired with this gun. Now we fire with gun number 2. The result is a 7, 2 hits on the Jake. Now we will roll with the 40mm gun A, and that is 2d6. We rolled a 12, and the result is that the Jake is destroyed. So we remove entirely the plane from the map, and it doesn't even strike our destroyer. The remaining 40mm is expended. To decrease the chance of Japanese airplanes hitting our destroyer, we may attempt once per phase an emergency maneuver. The result of the emergency maneuver, whether it fails or not, will carry on throughout the rest of the phase and is largely dependent on the skills of the captain and the engineering officer. In our case, both of these officers have the maximum rating of +2. We add up their skill values, and it's 4, and we will consult here the best column on the emergency maneuver table, and we roll 2d6. The roll is a 5, and the emergency maneuver is successful. Every time we attempt an emergency maneuver, we consume 1 fuel supply point. And during the course of a turn that can have up to 3 phases, if we attempt an emergency maneuver in each phase, we would consume 3 fuel supply points. The effect of a successful evasive maneuver is to provide us with a -1 die roll modifier on the Japanese hit table. This is a table we consult whenever there are Japanese planes left on the board, and we have to roll to see if they crash onto our destroyer. We have 2 Japanese planes which are shot down, so we will roll on this column here. The lower the number, the better the result. We roll 2d6 to determine if the shot down Jack crashes onto our destroyer, and we have a -1 for the successful evasive maneuver. The result is a 6 modified to a 5. It's a miss with no damage, so we remove the Jack and the shot down marker. Now we roll to see if the shot down Nate crashes onto our destroyer. We also have a -1 for the successful evasive maneuver. The roll is a 10 modified to a 9. We have a near miss, and now we have to consult on table 11-1. Now we roll 2d6. One will determine the row and the other the column. And luckily, the result is no damage. So we now remove the Nate. All 3 shot down Japanese planes are returned to our kamikaze container. Now we resolve the second wave. We had written before the bearing position for each one of these planes. The Peggy will go at 270 high and the Oscar 270 low. Now in this particular situation, both incoming Japanese kamikazes are coming from the same bearing position, 270 degrees. So not all of the guns on our destroyer obviously are going to be able to shoot at them. We still have 3 carrier-based air fire support markers, which we will use, and also 2 surface fire support markers, which can be used against every wave. After consulting our firing charts, we have all 5-inch guns firing at the high-flying Peggy, as well as 2 air fire and 1 surface fire support marker. As to the low-flying Oscar, we have 3 40mm guns, 3 20mm guns, 1 air and 1 surface fire support marker. Let's solve first the fire against the Peggy, and we'll start with the support markers. All the air and surface fire support markers missed. We needed a 6, and no 6 was obtained. So now we resolve the fire from the 5-inch guns. We roll 2 dice for each of the 5-inch guns, and the modification is a +1 because of the Mark 37 gun control system. Gun number 1 misses. Gun number 2, a 6 modified to a 7, 2 hits. Gun number 3 rolls a 5 modified to a 6, 1 more hit. With 1 more hit, it makes 3, so the Peggy is considered shot down flamed, and the remaining guns are considered to be expended. Now we resolve the fire against the Oscar. We'll start with the support markers. The surface fire support marker scores a hit, and when hit by a support marker, the plane is destroyed. It is removed from the map and it will not crash into our destroyer. Now we have the evasive maneuver phase, and in the prior wave we successfully executed an evasive maneuver, and that -1 carries throughout the phase, so we will use that -1 when we roll to see if that shot down flamed aircraft strikes our destroyer. So we roll 2 dice and consult the rightmost column, shot down flamed aircraft, and we need anything but a 12 to not get hit. But unfortunately we do roll a 12, and it is modified to an 11 hit. So now we consult table 11, and the shot down Peggy crashes into our destroyer. In this case, we consult the midship section table because the attack comes from 270 degrees. We roll a d10 to select the row and a d6 to select the column, and we will roll both dice twice. The second die roll represents an additional weapon that the plane could have had on board. So let's roll the first pair of dice now. We rolled a 2 and a 4, and the result is aft fire room hit, and we have a note A. Note A reads that we roll 1d6, and a roll of 1, we have the boiler exploding and the ship will be dead in the water. So we roll a 1d6, and fortunately it is just a 3. Place a hit marker in the aft fire room compartment, and every time we place the first hit marker in a compartment, we place also fire marker. Now we roll to determine the effect of the second hit. a 1 and a 2, the forward engine room is hit. Engineering Officer Jackson is killed, and we place a fire marker because it's the first hit on that compartment. The hit result also has a note B, and we have to roll 1 die, and we subtract 5 maneuver points if we roll a 1. But the roll is a 4, so no maneuver points are subtracted. Now we assign crews and officers to repair damage. We have damage in the midship section, specifically in the aft fire room and forward engine room. The midship section is responsibility of repair section number 2. Repair section number 2 has 1 chief and 10 men. We take 3 men and place them in the aft fire room. We take 3 more men from section 2 and place them in the forward engine room. Up to 3 men may be placed in any compartment for repair purposes. The executive officer must apply his rating to 1 compartment room, so he will be placed in the forward engine room. The damage control officer has to apply his rating to all repairs in 1 assigned section. The only section that has damage is the midship section, so we will place him in the forward fire room, and that way his rating could be applied, or will be applied, to both repair attempts in the aft fire room and in the forward engine room. Be aware that in this particular example, the damage control officer has a rating of 0, so it will not actually affect any of these die roll attempts, but the rules require that he be assigned to 1 section, and he's being assigned to the section that has the 2 damaged compartments. Repair chiefs must apply their ratings to all repair attempts to their sections, and to do that, the repair chief has to be placed in the appropriate section. So we take him from the damage control box and we will place him in any 1 compartment of the midship section. We will place him here in the aft stack compartment. Now, to solve the repair attempt, we determine the repair value. There is an inherent value of 1 for the compartment, plus the number of men that have been assigned up to 3. We have 3, so it goes up to 4. And that is modified by the rating of any officer present in the compartment. The executive officer has a value of 0, so it does not modify that rating, nor does the damage control officer that is in the same section. He has a value of 0, nor the repair chief that has been assigned to the section. He also has a value of 0. So the total value, repair value, is 4. Now we subtract the value of the hits. 1 hit marker has a value of 2, so 4 minus 2 leaves us with a +2. We roll 2d6 on table 20. Note that we will use this column because the value, repair value minus hit value, is +2. There's a series of modifiers here. None of them apply, but be aware that there is 1 for the current morale value of the entire crew. But our morale value starts at 0, and it's still at 0 at this time. So we roll 2d6. The roll is a 9, so the repair attempt is successful. Now we would roll 1d6 to determine how many hit markers are removed. The minimum number of hit markers that can be removed is 1, and 1 is what we have, so we don't have to actually roll. So we remove the hit marker and fire marker from the forward engine room. We return the crew members that successfully repaired the forward engine room to their damage control holding box. Now we resolve the repair attempt in the aft fire room. We have 3 crew members there. The initial repair value is 4 when you add the inherent compartment value. None of the officers in the same section have any effect because their ratings are 0. So it is 4 minus the value of the hit, which is 2, leaves us with a +2. No modifiers apply, and we roll 2d6. The roll is a 4. It is an unsuccessful repair attempt. So the hit marker remains there, and the crew members also must remain there for the next turn. And in the next turn, there will be a +1 on the repair table because of their continued presence. At the end of each phase, we check for hull integrity point loss. We had one plane, one kamikaze hitting our destroyer, so we roll 2d6 and we consult the leftmost column. The roll is a 4, we lose 1 hull integrity point. That's the end of the morning phase. Now we proceed to the midday phase. As we saw before in the morning phase, Engineering Officer Jackson was killed in action. Now we're at the beginning of the next phase, the midday phase, and we have to fill out this vacant position. And the way we do that is through combat promotion. The gunnery officer Longstreet will occupy the engineering officer's position, and Longstreet will keep his value of 0. Then Longstreet's position will be vacant and it will be occupied by Stewart, keeping his value also. And then the chief petty officer, Forrest, will occupy Stewart's position, keeping his rating. And that will create a vacancy for the chief petty officer position. And replace the new engineering officer in the forward or aft engine room. We will place him here in the forward engine room. Okay, here we have the officers after being promoted. The vacant position now is that of chief petty officer. For that position to be filled out, we select one of the repair chiefs, but we have to draw a chit from the cup. And if we select Hood, for example, who has a +1 as a repair chief, we run the risk of obtaining a less favorable value from the cup. So I will promote Hill for the chief petty officer position. So we draw a chit from the random cup to determine Hill's new value, and it is a 0. Now we have a vacancy for repair chief 1. So what we do is we remove one crew member from that section. And the removed crew member will now be section 1's repair chief. So we write down his name, and this will be Evans, and we draw a chit from the random cup to determine his rating. And it is also a 0. And with that, we have completed our crew replacement procedure. We roll 2d6 to determine the phase's weather. The roll is 5, the weather is clear. Now we roll to determine fighter coverage for the phase. The roll is a 3, we only have land-based air fire support. Now we pull a chit to see in which column we roll for land air fire support. And the chit is a 0. We roll 2d6 and we apply a +1 die roll modifier because we do have a fire direction team. The result is an 8 modified to a 9. We receive 2 land-based air fire support markers. And we place the markers in the available box. Now we determine the size of the Japanese attacks on the Japanese attack table. And we take into consideration our fire direction team, that gives us a +1. The chit that was drawn for the land-based air fire support was 0, so that doesn't change anything. Our ship radar is working fine. We get another +1, so we now have +2. We have 2 land-based radar stations working, so we have another +1, that's +3. And for each surface fire support marker available, we have 2 of them working for the full turn, so that kicks it up to +5. None of the other modifiers apply. We have +5. So we roll on the rightmost column here, which is +2 or greater, but we do have a die roll modifier. We're on Picket Station 1, so it's a -2. So we roll 2d6. The result is a 5 modified to a 3. We consult the C table. Here we have table C. We roll 2d6. 3 planes attacking, 0 high, 315 medium, and 270 low. We consult table 8-3 fighter waves. We have 3 planes attacking. All will be part of the first wave, and any special attack aircraft up to 2 will form part of that first wave. We pull out the first aircraft, and it is a Jack fighter interceptor, and it is placed in the 0 degrees high bearing position. The next aircraft drawn is a Tony fighter. Tony is placed in the 350-degree medium bearing position. Next aircraft drawn is a Grace torpedo bomber, and this is a special attack aircraft. It is placed in the special attack aircraft space for the first wave, and this plane will attack in addition to the 3 planes that comprise the first wave. Pull another plane, and this is a Babs reconnaissance aircraft, and we place it in the 270 degrees low bearing position. So we have 3 Japanese kamikazes attacking from 3 adjacent bearing positions. Plus we will have this Grace torpedo bomber conducting a special attack. We've placed the target markers on the Japanese aircraft. Of the 17 guns that the destroyer has, in this instance 5 of the guns cannot fire at these kamikazes. We still have available 2 air fire and 2 surface support fire markers, but because we have a special attack after these 3 kamikazes, we will save these fire support markers to defend from the special attack. We start with the fire against the Babs. The 5-inch guns cannot be slaved to the Mark 37 gun director because the Babs is flying at low altitude. It can only be used, this gun director system, as to the 5-inchers when a plane is flying at medium or high altitude. So we fire first for gun number 4 with no die roll modifier. The roll is a 10, 2 hits. Now we roll for gun number 5, also with no modifier. The roll is a 7, 1 hit. With 1 hit, the Babs accumulates 3 and is now shot down aflame. The remaining guns cannot fire and are considered expended. Next, we fire at the Tony. We only have 3 guns targeting this aircraft. We start with a 40mm gun, and this has a gun director, so we add 1 to the die roll. The roll is a 7 modified to an 8, 1 hit. Next, we have the 20mm guns. These don't have any modification. We start with gun A. The roll is an 8, another hit. And now our last gun, gun D, 20mm, firing at the Tony. The roll is a 3 and it's a miss. So for now we will see 2 Japanese aircraft attempting to crash onto our destroyer. This one coming down as a shot down a flame aircraft, but this one as a damaged aircraft with more chance of hurting our destroyer. Now we resolve fire against the Jack. Our 2 5-inch guns are slave to the Mark 37 gun director system, which can fire on the Jack because it is at high altitude. So we first roll for gun number 1 and we add 1 to the die roll. We roll a 10 modified to an 11 and the Jack is destroyed. Now we have to determine which section of our destroyer the special attack aircraft, this Grace torpedo bomber, will attack. We roll a die, a 1 or a 2, the forward section, 3 or 4, midship, and 5 or 6, the aft section. The roll is a 4, it will attack the midship section. We place this special attacker on our ship's midsection, and now we can fire at it with air and support fire markers, and these we saved for this special occasion, and also with spray fire, with this spray fire midship marker, and we do it in this same order: air fire first, surface fire, and finally spray fire. So we will roll for the air fire support markers first, and we need a 6 that will destroy the Grace. 1 through 5 will have no effect, so we roll for the leftmost air fire support marker. A 2, and it misses. Now we roll for the second air fire support marker. A 3, and that's a miss. Now we fire with the surface fire support markers, and we also need a 6. So we roll for the 1 to the left. The result is a 2, it misses. Now we roll for the other surface fire support marker. 2, and it also misses. And now we roll for spray fire. This is a desperate attempt, even though it has a pretty good chance of destroying the aircraft. We roll 2d6, and we need 2 through 8 to destroy the aircraft. We have to deduct 1 ammo supply point. So we roll for spray fire. The roll is a 3, and the Grace torpedo bomber is destroyed. Now to the emergency maneuver subphase. You can only do one emergency maneuver attempt per phase. We haven't done one yet in this phase. This is the first wave of the phase, so we will attempt an emergency maneuver. To determine which column we use on the emergency maneuver table, we have to add up the values of the captain and the engineering officer. So the value here is a total of +2. We rolled 2 dice here on the emergency maneuver table. The +2 leaves us here in the rightmost column. We have a very good chance of a successful evasive maneuver. And we deduct a point from the fuel supply track. The roll is a 7, and our ship successfully conducts an evasive maneuver. Now we roll 2d6 on the shot down flame column to see if the shot down Babs crashes onto our destroyer, and we have a -1 for a successful evasive maneuver. We roll 2d6. The roll is a 5 modified to a 4, miss with no damage. Now we roll to see if the damaged Tony crashes onto our destroyer. We roll 2d6 and subtract 1 because of the successful evasive maneuver. The result is a 9 modified to an 8. We have a near miss. Now we have to consult table 11-1. We will roll 2 6-sided dice, one to determine the row and another to determine the column. And the result is superficial damage with no effect to our ship. And we remove the Tony. All regular attack aircraft that participated in this wave, the Jack, the Tony, and the Babs, go back to our drawing cup. The special attack aircraft is removed permanently from the game. Now we go to repairs, and we will attempt to repair the hit in the aft fire room. The engineering officer, in this case Evans, has to respond and apply his rating to any of the following compartments, any of the engine rooms, fire rooms, or steering rooms. So we place his counter in the aft fire room. Notice that the value of the engineer in this case is 0, so it will not add anything to the repair value of that compartment, but he nevertheless, as an engineer, has to respond and be placed in any of the rooms we mentioned in case they are hit. Now we determine the repair value of the aft fire room. It has an inherent repair value of 1, plus 3 for the 3 crew members here is 4. There is no modification for the engineer, no modification for the chief of repair section 2, nor from the damage control officer. So the total repair value is 4. One hit subtracts 2 from the repair value, so the total here is +2. We roll 2d6 on the rightmost column, and we apply a +1 because we attempted to repair this compartment in a prior phase. The die roll is an 8 modified to a 9. The repair attempt is successful. Now we roll 1d6 to determine the number of hit points that are removed. The minimum number that can be removed is 1, and this compartment only has 1 hit point. So no die roll is necessary, and we remove the hit marker from the aft fire room. There are no more repairs to be made. Now we would normally check for hull integrity, but no Japanese planes crashed onto our destroyer this phase. So that is the end of the midday phase. We now advance the time of day marker, and we begin the night phase. We roll 2d6 on the weather table. The result is a 4. We treat the table as this being a 3. 3 and 4 is rain. And note A states that we roll the die again. And if we roll 1 through 4, no Japanese attack. 5 through 6, there is a Japanese attack. So we roll 1d6. The result is a 2. There will be no Japanese attack during the night phase. There are no more subphases to perform during the night phase, so the night phase is over. And here we have the end of turn additional phase. If we would be playing a multi-day scenario, we would undergo the procedures in this phase, which have to do with maintenance and replenishment, checking morale, ammunition supply, fuel supply, and shipboard radar. These matters are important to determine if our destroyer stays on station or if it sails to base for repairs. And here you would determine the number of days that the ship is undergoing repairs before it can sail again. So for purposes of our scenario, the scenario is over. Our ship remained afloat in its assigned duty station, so we have won the game. The game also includes rules for kikusui attacks, that is, occasional massive kamikaze attacks, where you will find yourself defending your ship from up to 9 enemy aircraft in a single wave. More than a game, Picket Duty is an immersive gaming experience. In this game, the Japanese will throw at you anything that flies, and it may take only one well-aimed Japanese plane to send your destroyer to the bottom of the sea. I hope that this video has given you an idea of the game's flow and what the game has to offer. Thanks for watching.